Okay, you all, it is about 5 minutes after 6 o'clock, and I think it's time to start this public comment, public informational meeting. My name is Jeb Penny, and I am an executive advisor to the Public Service Commission, and I'll be giving a brief presentation talking about the proposed area code exhaustion, and then I can respond to some questions if you have any, and we'll also be taking public comment. This is being recorded and will be posted to the case file at the Public Service Commission's website, which will be available to be viewed on YouTube. Is that right, Glenn?
Yes.
So this will be something that you can go back and watch, or you can share with your friends if they want an explanation of what's going on. So at the end of my presentation, I have a small list of people who have signed up, but it's not exhaustive. And so if anybody else wants to have questions or make comments at the end of this, please just raise your hand and come up. All right. So just a brief little bit of background. What is the Public Service Commission? Not a lot of people know who we are. And so our duty here is to just basically set rates for a lot of utilities, but also have a little bit of jurisdiction over telecommunications. We have 3 members that are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. We sit kind of as a judge and jury when it comes to setting rates and making other decisions about utilities. And just a little bit, we regulate over 1,100 utilities, water, sewer, natural gas, electric, and for the purposes here, telecommunications, which is important today. So why are we here? So on October 14th, the North American Numbering Plan Administrator, what we call the NAMPA, filed an application with the Public Service Commission, alerting the Commission that the 502, what they term, the NAMPA calls Number Planning Area, or NPA, or what we call an area code, would exhaust all available phone numbers under 502 by the third quarter of 2027. Now, when this happens in area codes, the NAMPA likes to give almost a 3-year head start to the agency that's in charge of this, so the agency can take evidence and see which of the options that the NAMPA provides would be the best suited for it. It gives a lot of lead time for the telecommunications industry to make the necessary changes as well. So the NAMPA is the neutral third party that plans all the phone numbers under a contract with the Federal Communications Commission. And they have presented several options, which I'll discuss here in a moment, and would like a decision no later than July 31st, 2025. So prior to filing the application, the NAMPA had meetings with Commission staff along with telephone companies and narrowed it down to 5 options, which we'll discuss here in a second. And the application can be viewed on our website, psc.ky.gov. And the case number is 24-00333. So this is a map of the current area codes in Kentucky. The yellow is the 502, which is subject to run out of available numbers by the third quarter of 2027. Orange is the 859, green is the 606, and the light blue is the 270/364 area code. So this will be somewhat relevant once we start talking about some of the options that are presented to the Public Service Commission. This is a closer map of the 502 area code. You can see it follows mainly county lines, but not exactly. So you can see there's a little divot here in Franklin County and Woodford County, where it doesn't follow it exactly, but it's usually pretty close.
It's coming back, sorry.
Beautiful.
All right, so that I don't think that was a view from the 502 area code that we just saw. Okay. All right, so the first option, and this is the option that has been is the preferred option of the NAMPA as well as the telecommunication carriers that were discussed, would be to do just an overlay. It's called an all services overlay of the 502 area code. Okay, so that means that when you still have the same geographic area as the 502 area code, and when the 502 area code phone numbers were exhausted, then the next phone numbers that would be issued would have a new area code. Once again, we don't know what that is, but it would have those new ones. But when you do a services overlay, one of the things that's important is that it becomes mandatory 10-digit dialing. No longer can you dial just the 7-digit dialing to make a local call. If there's an overlay, you have to dial the area code plus the remaining 7-digit numbers. Now, in Kentucky, 10-digit dialing is already mandatory in the 270 and 364 area code, because the last time the commission addressed a new area code, it was to implement an overlay over the 270 area code. And it's also mandatory in the 859 area code, but that's because of some sort of weird numbering thing, not with the 859 area code, but with some of those other little numbers, the next 3 digits, that were interfering with some different dialing requirements for certain hotlines. And so about 3 years ago, the FCC made 10-digit dialing mandatory in the 859 area code. The commission did a press release, and there was really not any much of a way of a flutter about it. And like I said, this is the recommended option from the NAMPA and all but one of the telecommunication carriers that met leading up to the filing of the application. And so the reason that this is recommended is that it impacts fewer customers than the other relief options that we'll talk about here. It's easier for the telephone companies to implement from in terms of translations, how to route phone numbers, and this stuff I went to law school that I didn't have to learn about. So that's, but it was, from the industry perspective, it's a lot easier to make these changes to their system. It eliminates or reduces customer confusion and the additional work that would be required if you're actually just changing boundaries of the 502 area code. And with the new overlay, once it's implemented, the projected exhaust date wouldn't be until for another 30 years from when they implement the overlay. The second option presented is a geographic split. Now, the last geographic split authorized in the United States, I will tell you, was in 2007. After that, it has been primarily overlays. But the geographic split was used to split the original 502 area code into 502 and 270, and also to split the 606 into 606 and 859. But the last time the commission was presented with a new area code, it was 270-364, and that's when the commission adopted the preferred option of the NAMPA and did the overlay. So you would retain 7-digit dialing in the remaining 502 area code, and I'm going to show you a map here in a second. There would be a split in the 502 area code. One portion would retain 502, don't know which one, and the other one would get a new area code. So the NAMPA has already come up with a proposed split. And so when you see this next map, the area entitled A will have a remaining life, area code would have a remaining life of 33 years, and B would have a remaining life of 30 years. And this is what the split would look like. Okay, so A would roughly run along here, kind of just trailing the Ohio River, just inland a little bit. So you'd have Jefferson County, Oldham County, Carrollton, I can't remember some of those there, Carroll County, I think, Trimble up that way, would be in one area, and then where we are, Bloomfield, Nelson, Franklin, Scott, all those other areas would be in Area B. So that's what the geographic split would look like. If the commission were to order that, then in consultation with the NAMPA would decide which area would retain 502 and which area would get the new area code. Once again, you'd still retain 7-digit dialing within that area code, but if you wanted to call from A to B, you would have to use 10-digit dialing. So the third option that was presented to the commission is that you would eliminate the boundary between 502 and the 270 and 364 area codes. So you still have to do 10-digit dialing, and what all the 502 numbers would be assigned by request in the 270-364 area code. If you were in that area code and you wanted a 502 number, you could get the 502 number. And if you were in the, or you could request a 270-364 number. But once all the 502s were exhausted, you would have to get a 270 or a 364 phone number. The proposed exhaustion date would be 2044, because right now, it doesn't look like to the 270364 will need a new area code until 2080. And this is what the resulting boundary would look like. You can see this is down here is the 270364, and this roughly up here, where I'm pointing with the laser pointer, is the 502. But it would be mandatory 10-digit dialing all within here, and you could get a 270-364 phone number up here or a 502 down here. If you remember having a 502 when you lived in Paducah way back when, you can finally get one again, something almost 30 years later. So there's two more options, and they're very similar. It would be to eliminate, the first one is to eliminate all area code boundaries. Okay? That means that you would go to mandatory 10-digit dialing nationwide. Phone numbers would be assigned upon request in the 270-364, 606, and 859. So you could live in 859 and ask for a 502 or a 606 number. You could live in 606, ask for an 859 or 502 until those numbers are exhausted. And once 502 area codes would go away, then you would have to you would pull in from all the other area codes. So what would happen right now is that would affect the exhaust dates of the other area codes. 606 right now is slated to exhaust in the second quarter of 2034, and the 859 is slated to exhaust in the fourth quarter of 2045. If you adopt this, the projected exhaust date for all those area codes would then be 2041. And I will say that these exhaust dates change on a quarterly basis. They can jump this way, they can jump this way, because after a while, phone numbers are sometimes recycled. People don't use them. They get pooled back in, and a large business goes out. We don't want to see that. But if that happens, they relinquish a lot of their phone numbers, and all of a sudden you have a large number of things that could affect it. Or somebody moves in, requests a large block of phone numbers, think about a hospital, and then all of a sudden that exhaust date next quarter jumps right down. So that's why the NAMPA gives a lot of lead time, just in case those numbers do change. So the fifth option would be to do the same thing as the fourth option, eliminate all the boundaries between the area codes, go to mandatory 10-digit dialing in that, but also implement an overlay of a new phone number at the same time. So that meant that you would go ahead and assign that phone number to that area, and once all the 606s and the 859s and the 270s and 364s and the 502s are exhausted, then you'd already have a new number in place. And that would, I can't remember the exhaust date is, but it really extends the life of it all. And it would decrease the current projected life of 859 by 2, and then the 270 and 364 by 37 years. But remember that 270 and 364 was not slated to exhaust until, I think, 2080 in the first place. So it's very dry, what we're talking about here, but it is important to how we look at these options here. But these are the 5 options that were presented to the commission. So what's next after the commission, after these public hearings? Well, all the public comments will be reviewed by the commission and the commission staff. And then the commission will issue a final order adopting one of the options no later than July 31st, 2025. And the reason that the NAMPA has asked for that particular date is because regardless of what the commission orders, changes are going to happen with the telecommunication companies. They're going to have to start reprogramming all their systems to account for whatever the commission orders. So and it depends, there'll be different timelines for what will happen, but I've put up here as an example the preferred option of the overlay what would happen. There'd be a 13-month implementation period from when the commission issues the final order, like I said, no later than July 31st, 2025. And then 6 months from the date of that order, mandatory 10-digit dialing would go into effect in the 502 area code. And by the 13th month, all systems would have been converted. And then whenever the 502 exhausts, the new area code would kick in. And that's essentially it. This is my contact information here. You can also find me, you can Google me. I don't think I'm that popular, but my name will pop up and it will lead you to me. Before we take public comments, are there any just informational questions I can answer?
Is this the only meeting that you're gonna have for, to let everybody know? I mean, is this the only one in Bardstown?
This is the only meeting in Bardstown. We have a meeting, we discussed it at the commission. We chose, I think, the 5 most populated areas. Tomorrow we'll be in Georgetown. Thursday we'll be in Louisville. Next week we'll be in Carrollton, and then in Frankfurt. So this is the only one in this neck of the woods.
And what was the start date again, once this is implemented?
It depends upon the final, the date upon which the commission issues the order, because they wanted, the NAMPA would like an order no later than July 31st. But depending upon which option would affect the deadlines. I don't have all of those right at hand, but I know, for example, if the commission orders the overlay, 6 months from the date of the order being issued is when mandatory 10-digit dialing would go into effect. And that would probably be the case for anything but an area code split, because all of the other ones would involve mandatory 10-digit dialing. So 6 months, mandatory 10-digit dialing, maximum of 13 months from the date the commission issues the order to when the telecommunications industry has been able to change all their systems over and make the necessary translations in their systems.
You don't have a simple table of when the current different area codes, in addition to 502, are projected to expire or run out of numbers, right?
I don't have a simple one. I touched on some of the projected
Yeah,
exhaust dates
yeah,
from that,
yeah.
but I will say that when the commission gets the exhaust dates from the NAMPA, the specific exhaust dates, the quarterly ones, those are given to us on a confidential basis.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why, but they are. But so we talked about this, like I think 270.364 will be 2080. 606 is, I think might be the next one, but we're still looking at several years out for that. This is the only one that's imminent. Maybe 2034 for 606. I think I'm getting a nod from my coworker. So, but that would be the next one. And anything can happen. Industry locates there, soak up a lot of numbers. A lot of people move in there and get new cell phones and like that, and then you can see that number come down. I've seen them change, not necessarily hours, but a matter of exhaust date can change from from 2039 to 2035 in a matter of about half a year. So, are there any other questions? Okay. Do we have any more on the sign sheet? All right.
So, sir, when we put our input suggestions, like we do it now, you're asking
Yeah, so you
the
can.
simple overlay, I think Senator Higdon was on the county judge and Representative Mastroianni, that's kind of what I think that we've all agreed that'd be the simplest, best scenario. I don't even know why, really looking at those options, why they would even look elsewhere, what reason they would go otherwise.
Which number was the one that you're talking about? Number one?
The first one was a simple overlay,
Right, Judge.
and the only thing, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think
Yeah.
the senator said everybody will keep their number, but you have to go to 10 digits.
And then once 502 goes out, you get a new area. Whoever gets that next phone number will get
Yes,
that new area.
but it wouldn't have to change, everybody's phone number would not
Right.
change.
Oh, okay.
That's correct. Yeah. So
That's number one?
that's option number one.
Okay, so if you're a new person moving in town and this is already implemented, then that person would take the new number and we would keep the 502, correct?
You would always, if you have a 502 number, you would keep it.
Okay.
And if that new person moves in and there's still 502 numbers available, they get a 502.
Okay.
It's only when all those 502 numbers go away.
Okay, in 27.
It's projected, these things can change, but yes, and whenever that last 502 number gets issued,
Okay,
then the new area code would kick in.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's only if they want a new phone number. Like if they move from La Crosse, Wisconsin, they can bring their cell phone and their 608 area code and nothing changes, correct?
Absolutely.
Because now
Okay.
cell phone companies don't require you to get a new number for your area like they used to, way back when, in the early 2000s.
Correct.
So this really isn't going to, if they choose number one, won't impact a lot of people unless they start out with a brand new phone number. Correct? Like, or if they add a business and they want a new phone number, they didn't have one, they're not transferring in. So it's really the new people that it will affect who don't have a current phone number that they're transferring in, other than we have to dial the 10 digits, which if you're using a cell phone, you're doing anyways, more than likely.
That's,
Correct?
that is
Is that a good
correct.
summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is, and thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've read
If
this
you're
a
in
couple
another
times.
meeting, I'm going to call on you first.
Okay,
but,
well,
yeah.
pay for my gas, I'll come.
But, and the thing is also, remember, numbers do get recycled.
Yes.
So numbers get reclaimed all the time because these carriers are out there, and I know we're getting into the weeds, but a carrier or a telephone carrier, of which there are many, will reserve a 1,000 block or a 10,000 block number. And after a while, if they don't use them, they have to send them back in. They get reclaimed if they haven't used them for a while, so that those can get sent back out. And so, there might still be 502, when 502 is quote unquote exhausted, there still could be some 502s sent out. And consider businesses are affected the most that want like continuous numbers. What we will see sometimes is that when we don't do requests for phone numbers, but oftentimes we can overturn a decision of the NAMPA with regard to assignments of blocks of phone numbers. And what we usually see will be a business like a hospital or a call center wanting 1,000 consecutive numbers, 502-245-001 through 099 or 999 or something like that. So that's where I think you could see more of an effect is businesses wanting consecutive numbers. But to your point, it's going to be new service in the 502 area code. When the 502 is exhausted, that's not going to have a 502.
That's a great summary.
Okay. Right. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't get to vote on that paper, so.
Do you want to come up and, or,
Well, I wanted to write down the one that I wanted.
That's not voting on that paper.
Oh.
is
oh
it?
no, this just indicated if you wanted to actually make a public comment, but,
Oh, okay. No.
yeah.
But you can say it now because this is being
Yes,
recorded.
well, I'm in favor
Yeah.
of the number one. I thought it was 5 that I wanted. But then once all the discussions went on, then I understood that number 1 is the better choice.
Well, we've received 2 written public comments in that record, and both of them are in favor of the first option.
Yeah.
And I think it's from existing people in 502 that want to keep 502,
Mhm.
Yes.
and the new people can get a new one, but, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's less confusing, it's for the whole state, because we do some of the other overlays where it impacts a bigger geographic area, then it's more
Mhm.
confusion. There's some sense of the physical boundaries
Yeah,
of the different
Right, so
areas.
the 502 is a smaller area.
That's right.
And some of the options that didn't make it into the alternative, I mean, it was interesting to see, they could carve off just parts of the other area codes. They would change some 270s, move them to 502, and then areas of the 859. I mean, they went through all different permutations. We're lucky that only 5 of them made it to the application that I actually have to talk about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, and to the point on the cell phone numbers, I mean, I was born and raised in Kentucky, but I moved out of state, and I got my cell phone out of state. And I have had this same cell phone number since 1997. So when I moved back to Kentucky, I kept my cell phone because people around the globe know me by that number, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm the odd person out in that I'm a different area code within the state for everybody, but numbers are important to people. I mean, you get attached to a business number, you get attached to a relative's number, whatever, not having to adjust how you're,
right.
and suddenly start using a different area code.
And at the time when the NAMPA filed the application, and one of the things they talked about was, allowing the 606 to have different area code numbers, I told them, I was like, that's not going to fly. We have 2 commissioners that are 606 people, and they don't want to lose 606. If you move that far east, you know that they're very attached to that phone number.
Yeah.
So,
And seniors, I live in a senior complex at Nazareth, and, you know, that's really hard for some of the residents that's in my building. I mean, they would be just lost.
Mhm.
They had to learn something new, you know.
if they were going to make a phone call to a different area code, they'd have to dial 10 digits anyway. All they have to do is remember just the same phone, the same area
Yeah.
code they have
Yeah.
to make the phone call. So, anyway, and I know we've heard from elected representatives. Are there any other elected members that would like to make a comment on this?
Well, he wasn't speaking for me, so.
Okay.
So we will make sure we get all our voices in.
All
So,
right.
The preferred option is, that's why they call it the preferred option, because it is the best option. And I appreciate, Public Service Commission doing their due diligence to come out and get the input, but it would be an absolute nightmare for Nelson County and other counties in 502 to change to another area code. I mean, you can imagine all the numbers, the cell phones that have to be reprogrammed, 911, the emergency weather warnings we put out. And if you don't, if those numbers are not changed, burglar alarms, stationery for businesses, advertisement, it's just, I went through, I used to be in 502 in Marion County, and we changed to 270. Well, it was a gift that kept on giving. It seemed like every day there was an issue that you would come up about that was created by the change from 502 to 270. And, we recently did the overlay, and it was seamless, and nobody really even knew that it happened. And that's why there hasn't been any changes like that, or, where you redo the entire, area code. That's why that hasn't been done for years, because it is a lot of problems. The only negative to this is the 10-digit dialing, and if you have a cell phone, you're doing it anyway. If you're dialing into another area code, you're doing it anyway. So that's not a major issue. That would not be an issue that would stop this from happening. So I'm in favor, and I think I did an article in the paper, and I got a lot of feedback back. I think I can speak for most everybody in Nelson County to say that we want the preferred option. We want to stay with 502 and do the overlay.
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome.
And same, I've had a lot of calls. Everybody wants option one, just overlay, so.
Well, good. Thank you, Representative. I appreciate that.
He said I didn't speak for him, and I said the same thing.
You didn't tell me about the 270. I needed to tell that.
I'm just here to take comment on a referee. On that.
And
He's jumped in between them.
I know, right?
I live in another county. He's not my judge. I'm his senator, though.
We'll put tariffs on you.
All right. Yes, sir.
I'm not elected, but I am the county's emergency management director. And on behalf of all public service, all the emergency services, we would absolutely prefer the preferred option number one. And as a administrator of the PSAP with a 911 system here in the county, it's already difficult enough for us to get the right numbers for things a lot of times, and the absolute disaster that it would be with changing and adding new area codes would just be not worth the risk for adding minutes possibly to our emergency responses. The minor inconvenience that 10-digit dialing would be, as opposed to having another area code, is just it's a no-brainer. I think, as the judge said. So, but we would stand uniformly in support of the preferred method. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I didn't even touch on the public safety aspect of it, but there a lot less programming, reprogramming has to go in for the PSAPs if you just go to the mandatory 10-digit dialing and just do the overlay. Because or especially like they're looking at some of the options when boundaries change, when exchange boundaries change. I mean, I've had a little PSAP work on
Now
that.
adds in relay times because you get routed to the wrong PSAP and they have to come back.
You might go up to Lexington and come back and,
Right.
understood. All right.
Are these slides on your website? I tried to find them just now and couldn't.
They're not, but I can give you my card, and if you'll shoot me an email, I can take it.
It's an oversight on my part. It will be on our website at some point after this. So are there, yes, sir?
The only comment I can make is, and I don't think it would happen because with the 270, they overlaid it with
364.
8364, would be to make the number away from 502, something noticeably different. We lived through the 348 running out of numbers and then added 349, and I'm sure somebody thought that was a great idea. It was not. At least for the people that had 348 numbers, you were constantly telling people, well, no, you need to call 349. So please make the area code number something completely different. Don't make it 503.
I don't think that they usually do, but I don't know. We don't know what the number will be, and we, the commission, does not have the authority to assign that number. But
it's been said out here somewhere.
we will make that recommendation in whatever order the commission issues.
Just looking at what they did in Western Kentucky, it doesn't look like that they would, but please don't.
All
Well,
right.
and I would, 503 is my area code, having moved here from Oregon, and I can tell you, every time I give a store or somewhere my phone number, there, I have to repeat the 503. So I second your statement about don't make it the next, you can't make it the next digit, but don't make it close, right?
One might be available.
So, but that's a good point I didn't think about, sir, and I'll recommend to the commission in any order they at least include a comment, please, if when there's assignment of a new phone number or a new area code, that it's not close to that 502.
I agree that option 1 is the way to go.
Okay. All right. Now, everybody seemed to have had their piece, but I do have one person, I just want to make sure, who signed up to make a public comment. Deborah Boharski?
Bohachevsky, that's me. I was going to ask, because I do actually have some notes.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to stand up here so it's easier talking out. So this seems like the consensus is option 1 is the logical option, but we all know that the government doesn't actually always equal option, or it doesn't equal logical. So please, with your input, option 1 does definitely seem to be the most logical option, and I highly encourage the PSC to adopt the overlay option. A person's phone number is tied to their identity. Like when I was in college, we used our social security number. Well, that didn't work out so good in the future. So now everybody's identity is tied to their phone number. You go to Kroger, you punch in your phone number. You go on websites, your login more than likely will include your email or your phone number. So to reassign the phone numbers would be just a logistical disaster in so many ways. So that's the big thing that I wanted to kind of point out is the importance of identity that is tied to a person's phone number. And I really appreciate that there is the public hearing to get people's input, because public input is so important. And even though there's only a handful of people, I think we've all talked to other people, and so we have gotten the consensus of what is the best option. So thank you again. And option 1, the overlay, please.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any other comments to make? Or yes, sir.
I want to make sure it goes on the record for the
Yeah.
PSC.
I think is that microphone hot? Yeah.
Am I
There
good
you go.
here?
Right there.
Hello, I'd like to, hi everybody, I'm going to address the PSC because I think it's what I'm supposed to do, so don't think I'm being rude not talking to you all. My name is Scott Wantland. I practice law in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. I make a living with my phone number. If you were to somehow force me to change my phone number, it would cost me tens of thousands of dollars in new marketing materials. I'd have to get new business cards, new stationery. my website at work is 502 Law. So to do anything other than to give me some sort of option to keep my phone number and keep using it as is would be economically devastating to me. I think that I'm probably more sophisticated than your average small business person, just not to be rude, but just based on my use of technology and my age. So if you think about the economic hardship that you would work on thousands of Kentucky small business owners if you were to force people to change their phone numbers. Think about, I remember when 606 and 859 split, however long ago that was, one of the arguments for letting Eastern Kentucky keep 606 was that their economy was already so challenging that to change all their phone numbers would be one less call that that business would get, or one less way that somebody would remember who they are. So as the PSC is thinking about a way to do this, it's implausible for me to think of a way that it makes any sense to do it where people don't get to keep their current numbers. While I would say that my clients are of all socioeconomic backgrounds, they are all in the 502 for the most part, even though I do have some 270 clients. I've found that fewer and fewer people use landlines. Almost everybody is on a wireless communication device at this point. And so the minor inconvenience that somebody might say of, I don't want to have to 10-digit dial, I think that that's probably going to be an incredibly small group of people, and I would think that it's a group of people that gets a little smaller every year because more and more people go to wireless only, which is mandatory 10-digit dial. I don't mind an overlay. I really don't mind the statewide overlay. I don't mind anything that allows me to keep my 10-digit dial numbers as they are. And I think the Public Service Commission not only should think about this from just ease of use for consumers, but think about the millions, that might be an exaggeration, but I don't think it is, of dollars of economic impact you would have on businesses that would have to change their signs, that would have to change their business cards, that would have to change all their advertising materials they've ever done. And so I think that if you do it anyway other than an overlay, you're really just hurting small business needlessly, and would thank the Public Service Commission to do an overlay no matter what. Or something where I get to keep my 502.
Excellent. That's great.
Thank you very much for those comments. I appreciate that, and I've never heard applause at a public comment meeting when a positive comment has been made.
He said everything we were thinking.
Yeah,
that
that was really good. Really
And I appreciate you coming to the mic to make sure that it was on the record too. All right. Are there any other comments? Are there any other questions?
Is there anybody or constituency that's pushing for something where it wouldn't be an overlay?
No. Like I said, I sat in on two pre-application meetings, where the role of the commission staff is just to be an observer, and I can't remember how many telecommunication providers were on there, maybe a dozen or more, and only one of them wanted the statewide overlay. The rest of them wanted just the services, the 502 overlay. Nobody wanted to split. Nobody wanted to expand it to just 270 or to carve off parts of 859 and 270 just to extend the life of the 502. Did I answer your question?
It does. Is there any group of people that it makes most financial sense for it to go the other way? Because I know that that's often a consideration when we start talking about government.
This is my opinion, personal, not professional, not that of the Public Service Commission, but anybody that has large groups of consecutive numbers. What always comes to mind is that all the hospitals, you drive past Hospital Turn of Louisville, just think about them.
Well, think about all the 502, 564 numbers with state government. That's a huge block of
It makes
numbers.
it harder
Or
for people to
universities
find
have
it,
huge.
yeah.
They have their own.
Exactly. I mean, that's, UK wouldn't be bothered, but, Kentucky State, a large entity. Toyota's up in Georgetown. This is a pretty populated area code. So, regardless of what happens, there's going to be an effect on somebody. It's just a matter of what's What's going to cause the least amount of confusion? What's going to have the smallest economic impact? What's going to be the least disruptive? So and that's why. Yes, Senator.
You said that you had the public comment on record when you used the microphone. Do we need to each go by and identify ourselves and say yay or nay?
You can submit a written
Written,
one if
okay.
you want, yeah.
Okay.
Everything spoken in this room is being recorded overall.
Okay,
You
all
don't
right.
have to step up to the mic. We would like it, but
Okay.
it's recorded anyway.
All right, that's good.
Thank you.
Do you want those that spoke to sign up on your sign-up sheet, just so there is like a duplication of public record of comment?
Only if you
or-
want to. It's not necessary for
Okay.
you to do so. In fact, I can't make you.
Sure, sure.
So if people want to, but it's not necessary. And we have cards for written comments that will be mailed in and placed into the public record as well. And you can say your piece there. Well, I appreciate you all, and I appreciate the engagement on this. And thank you very much for coming here. And here's my contact information. These slides will become available at some point on our website, so that you can look at those. They'll be in the case file, online case file for this. And if there's nothing else, Glenn, I think we can shut it down. All right, thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.